Welcome to the Truth Room with Débora. In the last episode, I spoke about the running, how many of us distract ourselves through busyness, responsibility, perfectionism, survival, or constantly doing. Because slowing down often means facing what's happening within us and how eventually something inside us becomes tired of hiding. This episode is part of the Remember Who You Are mini-series, and today I want to talk about what happens when the running begins to slow and something within us starts to wake up. Maybe not physically, but spiritually, emotionally, internally. It's the moment where the life you've been living no longer fits in the same way. The routines are the same, the people are the same, the environment might even be the same. But you are changing. Something inside you begins asking deeper questions. And once that awakening begins, it becomes very difficult to go back to sleep. I think awakening is often misunderstood. People imagine it as one huge dramatic moment, but sometimes it begins quietly as a discomfort, a restlessness, a feeling that something in you no longer aligns. You may not even understand it at first. You just know that the things that used to fulfill you don't necessarily fulfill you anymore. And that can feel unsettling. In The Lion King, Simba's awakening begins before he returns home. It starts with reminders, conversations, encounters, moments that stir something in him. And I think life gives us those moments too, sometimes through pain, sometimes through exhaustion, sometimes through stillness, and sometimes through people who remind us of what we've forgotten, our own Rafiki moments that call us back to ourselves. I think one of the hardest parts of awakening is that you find yourself in between versions of yourself. You can no longer fully connect with who you used to be, but you haven't fully stepped into who you are becoming either. It's an uncomfortable space, a stretching space. And sometimes it can feel lonely because the people around you may not understand what's changing inside of you. But I'm beginning to realize that awakening often requires separation before alignment. Things begin to fall away that no longer fit your spirit, not as punishment, but as preparation. For me, I think this season of my life has been an awakening, not because I suddenly become someone different, but because I could no longer ignore what I felt deep inside. But one of the things I've realized is that awakening doesn't always feel exciting at first. Sometimes it feels uncomfortable because you begin to outgrow parts of your life that once felt normal. And I found myself in this strange in-between space where I can feel that something inside me is changing, but I don't fully know how everything will turn out. I just know I can't ignore it anymore. There's just this feeling that I'm being called to step into something more aligned, more honest, more meaningful. And one of the biggest shifts for me has been realizing that waiting for everything to be perfect was actually keeping me stuck. Because awakening often asks you to move before you feel fully ready. And I think starting this podcast is part of that for me. Choosing to trust what I feel deeply, even when things are still unfolding. Sometimes it's about finally listening to what's already been whispering within you for a long time. And something else I'm learning is that awakening is not the same as having all the answers. I think so many people unconsciously equate awakening with having arrived, having it all figured out, never struggling again, or somehow becoming spiritually evolved. But awakening is not about becoming flawless. It's about seeing more clearly, recognizing truth, becoming more conscious of yourself, your patterns, your calling, your disconnection, your desires, your pain, your purpose. And it's that awareness that slowly begins changing how you live. Awakening can sometimes look like questioning everything, feeling emotionally stretched, becoming more aware of patterns you can no longer ignore, recognizing misalignment before you fully know what to do about it, feeling pulled towards change before the path is completely clear. And I think awareness is often just the beginning of honesty. And honesty can feel uncomfortable before it feels freeing. It's about honestly acknowledging that what no longer aligns, being honest to recognize patterns, distractions, fears, or roles that have pulled you away from yourself over time. Because truth often disrupts before it realigns. But just maybe that disruption is not punishment. Maybe it's preparation. Preparation for returning to yourself more fully, for recognizing who you are beneath the survival, beneath the expectations, beneath the versions of yourself created just to cope. And that's what we'll explore in the next episode. Not just the idea of remembering, but what it means to truly return to yourself. And that's why the Truth Room exists. Because so many people are carrying truths they've never spoken out loud, stories they've hidden, pain they've silenced, parts of themselves they've disconnected from in order to survive. And maybe healing begins the moment we finally become honest about what's real. If this episode resonated with you, if you're in a season where something inside of you is shifting, awakening, questioning, I want you to know that you're not alone. And if you have a story, a truth, a journey that may help someone else feel seen, I would love to hear from you, because healing happens when truth is spoken, and someone else just might realize that they are not alone in what they are carrying. And maybe that's a question I'll leave with you today. What if the discomfort you've been feeling lately isn't your life falling apart? What if it's your spirit waking up? This is the Truth Room with Débora, where truth is spoken and healing begins.